Vincent Kompany wasn't the first choice for the job. He was closer to being the sixth. Everybody had their doubts over whether a man that had just gotten Burnley relegated would be the same man that could lift Bayern Munich from the doldrums and restore their status at the top. Well, they're back at the top. Everything's fixed, right? Well, it's complicated, isn't it? Thomas Muller wasn't able to get his usual kicks out of playing Barcelona. Aston Villa seemed to make light work of them. They're out of the DFB Pokal, and Manuel Neuer appears to believe he's playing a different sport. He broke his rib with this maneuver, by the way. They've just suffered their first and only defeat of the Bundesliga season and are currently missing 8 players through injury. Sasha Bowie recently got added to that list. Bayer Leverkusen started slow but are now sitting on 7 straight wins, and Bayern are about to host Leipzig. Due to the media nature of this club, rather unaffectionately known as Hollywood FC, you've probably already guessed that the vultures are circling. Almost like everything with this club though, much is being exaggerated. Last season, after 14 games played, Bayer Leverkusen were absolutely flying with 36 points put up on the board. 11 wins, 3 draws, undefeated, außergewöhnlich. Bayern, on the other hand, after 14 games played, had only amassed a measly 35 points. So Bayern took action this year. They took a big swing and things are back on track. Same number of games played, 33 points. And they are 4 points on top. For reference, this is their points progression over the last couple of years. I don't know about you, but I'd say they're right on track. Have I also mentioned that the club announced a record annual revenue of just under €1 billion the other day? Must have forgot. You see what I mean? Complicated. Of course, the numbers don't tell the full story of what happens behind the scenes. Bayern are in fact not better than they were in the 2019-20 season when they won the treble, just because they have a better points projection, for example. And by my assessment, they are in fact not worse than last season, even if the table says so. But all of this just goes to show how flimsy narratives are in this game and how people like this guy talk about them to pay the rent. What a loser. Hello, hope you're well, welcome back. I checked and realized I haven't made a Bundesliga related video in many weeks. Big apologies to my 10% German audience out there. You know who you are. Wie geht's? I have wanted to make this video for a while, but if I'm honest with you, I just hadn't really watched enough of Bayern's games since the start of the season, outside of the really big ones, you know, obviously Dortmund, Leverkusen, the Champions League games. But I'm all caught up over the last month or so we're good to go. Also, this video was sponsored by me, so feel free to become a channel member if you want, or I might set up a Patreon if that's easier, but let me know what you think. This was kind of a do or die season for Bayern Munich. Them not winning the Bundesliga last season was symptomatic of a problem that's long persisted at the club. Testament to that is having to rely on Borussia Dortmund to not win their final game the year prior in order to keep the winning streak going. To this day, I still can't completely comprehend that level of choking. It's truly impressive, actually. Thomas Tuchel couldn't deliver a trophy for Harry Kane in Germany, so now he's going to try and do it with the English national team. Hope it works out. Vincent Kompany was a very intelligent player, a true legend of the game. There's a reason he had an 11-year career at Manchester City, despite arriving before the Abu Dhabi takeover. But he did get Burnley relegated, and Anderlecht to Burnley to Bayern is a crazy jump. I said at the start of the season that regardless of how this Kompany appointment eventually went, it was a very smart move by the Bayern management, because if it goes badly, they can just say that they were desperately trying new things after such a raucous period and how the traditional route didn't seem to work. And if it went well, then they could say, you guys just didn't see the vision, and that's why they're in charge, and not you. There were many doubts, and I would even say in the very first game, things were a bit shaky. But since then, the ship looks to be very much right. Like I said, I pretty much held off on making this video because for the last 4 or 5 weeks I've been watching Bayern play to sort of formulate my own opinion, and the one thing that keeps popping up time and time again is just how fluid they seem to be now in comparison to the previous year. Not everyone is performing to the optimum level, but there is visibly so much improvement from players that many felt were on their last legs only a few months ago. Of course, these observations are mostly derived from a fit Bayern Munich. We'll talk about the injuries, and we've also got the games like the Mainz game, the Barcelona game, the Aston Villa game. I'll touch on those too. But I think those were kind of anomalies when it comes to the grand scheme of things with this Bayern team. So let's go ahead and talk about some of these improvements and the progression of Kompany's tactics over the year. One of the most important and eye-catching improvements is that in the efficiency of the man marking that Bayern are doing. This is actually a marking tactic that most Bundesliga sides are doing right now. I guess the instructions are just a lot easier than when you have your zonal marking systems. Bayern conceded 45 goals last season, the most in the top 5 in the league. Right now, they have the lowest rate of conceding in the league and are well worth it. Man-for-man marking might be antiquated to some, but the quality of Bayern specifically means that they can comfortably bet on each individual player being better than their opposite number. And it's pretty much that gap in quality that allows Bayern to bypass most of their opposition's marking systems too. I say most because the Barcelona match is the best example of them getting completely outplayed by a strongest side man for man. You'd think Bayern were in crisis based on how that went. But that's not been the norm for them, like I said, so I'm not going to focus on it. There is always an emphasis on creating numerical advantages throughout the pitch regardless of what position you are on paper, meaning that people will just pop up everywhere and use their natural abilities to the best that they can, whether that's in attack or defense. The line is crazy high, and it's more common to see more Bayern players in the opposition's box or a defensive third than the opposition themselves. Obviously, seeing Harry Kane in the center circle during a Bayern Munich attack has been commonplace for a very, very long time, and when that happens, we might see Jamal Musiala in the 9 position, and then the DM position, and then on either wing as a fullback, because he's probably the most press-resistant player in the world right now. He's very high up there at the very least, and when he goes out into some arbitrary space, his defender is going to follow him, and when that happens, the whole system falls apart for the opposition. Sometimes I feel like Bayern is built around finding Jamal Musiala in the half space between fullbacks and the centre back, especially since Kane's been injured. And when he's there, all he's doing is dancing. He's untouchable. Not exactly a half space moment, but I want to highlight the composure that this man shows when he scores his goal against Shakhtar Donetsk. It's insane. The audacity to do this kind of thing, it's never lost on me. Olise as well, they both ran riot. So Florian Wirtz just signed a 1-year extension for his time at Leverkusen, and I'm guessing that he just did that to pump up his price when he eventually does leave, plus the man probably does deserve a raise. All I'm saying is that if he does go to Bayern Munich eventually, be prepared for about 10 more years of dominance. This is Manuel Neuer's heat map this season. Some things never change, you know? But he's not the only one. Like I said, the team plays extremely high to maintain a very compact rest defense and win the ball back as quickly as possible. The distance between the lines is smaller than my chances of finding happiness in life. And as a result, we get Bayern Munich controlling 67% of the ball on average in the 24-25 Bundesliga. Genuinely insane. Even more insane when you factor in that this is actually the highest possession stat that Bayern have averaged in the last 5 years. Does it make for the most compelling and interesting team to watch as a neutral? Not all the time, but for Kompany and Bayern Munich, that's a good thing. In the entirety of the Shakhtar Donetsk match, outside of the first 5 minutes when Shakhtar scored a goal, the game was pretty much just played in Shakhtar Donetsk's half the entire time. I don't know why in the second half they didn't just close off Bayern's half, add more seating. They would have made more money from ticketing, I think. Their movements are deliberate, coordinated, and dynamic. Like I said, none of this is new. It's not like Vincent Kompany has come in and put in an entirely new system in play that nobody's seen before. It's not like Thomas Tuchel wasn't trying to do a lot of the same things too. Imagine thinking, oh, why didn't Thomas Tuchel just overload players in different areas of the pitch to beat the press? It's a nonsensical thought, right? All I'm saying is that the players seem to be a lot more receptive to what Kompany's saying, and remember, by most part, this is the same group of players. A little bit more on Harry Kane. Did you know the Bundesliga logo is actually this image right here? It's not. But it is now. Harry Kane is still the best and most complete striker in world football. I know that we have Viktor Gyökeres and other players like that, but just from an overall completeness perspective, nobody comes close. 19 games, 20 goals, 9 assists. He is an animal. And for some reason, him and Kimmich shake hands in the most gentlemanly fashion when he scores. Quick, seamless, to the point. It's called German efficiency, guys. Get with the program. He has missed some games after coming off versus Dortmund, a game which they drew, and Bayern immediately followed that up with a loss to Leverkusen in the DFB Pokal. But it looks like he'll be back for Leipzig. Kane has been a consistent performer in a sea of inconsistency, so it's not really that surprising to see that he's still playing that way. What is surprising, however, is seeing all these players who were, like I said, written off last season return from the grave. A lot of players who fans were saying should be sold. Joshua Kimmich, for example, has returned, despite Thomas Tuchel saying he doesn't view him as a defensive midfielder, more as a number 8. A bit odd. And remember that this has been happening in the wake of an injury crisis. Konrad Laimer, who I think should probably be called 3-Lung Laimer at this point, as well as Rafael Guerreiro, have both been filling in at right back for the entirety of the season because that position for Bayern Munich is cursed. Both Josip Stanisic and Sasha Bowie have been struggling this year. Pavlovic is quality, but got injured and is slowly being reintroduced. Joao Paulinho stepped in as a backup, then got injured. Goretzka had fallen that far down the pecking order, but since his chance to redeem himself came through, he's been doing well. Alphonso Davies is another good example. He's someone that's benefited greatly from Kompany's preference for a high line as opposed to Tuchel's more conservative approach. Min Jae Kim and Dayot Upamecano have vastly improved. Upamecano was actually nominated for Bundesliga Player of the Month last year. Of course, it's a lot easier to defend when your team commands almost 70% of the ball. And we also can't discount the fact that their decision making and timing have also probably improved thanks to the fact that they're now being coached by an all-time central defender. So that's all the good stuff, right? Let's go ahead and talk about the most glaring flaws in this team. Now, all that is good and well, right? Bayern Munich are back to the top of the table. A lot of their players are returning to their base form, which is high because they're quality players and that's how they got to Bayern Munich in the first place. But they're not the complete package just yet. I want to bring it back to players like Dayot Upamecano and Min Jae Kim, right? Great as they are, we all know that they have mistakes in them. Not just them. Let's say somebody misses a 1v1 tackle and the structure of Bayern's defense, it falls over a little bit. These players have been susceptible to not being able to recover that well. And it's kind of something that's symptomatic of doing this man-marking system, right? You live by a man-marking system, you die by a man-marking system. Take a look at the only goal they conceded in their 5-1 win versus Shakhtar. Goretzka commits himself and loses his 50-50 in the midfield. Upamecano commits to press Alexander Zubov but gets caught, and now Shakhtar are in a 3v2. Kimmich and Min Jae are frantic, and this is the opening goal being scored after only 4 minutes. As we know, Bayern regained composure and ran riot, winning that game 5-1. But this is not an isolated incident. More recently and more detrimentally, I saw this happen to Bayern Munich when they traveled to the Mewe Stadium and pretty much got outplayed. Bayern were doing their usual suffocating high press early on, and it looked like this would be fruitful for them. It only took 5 minutes for Michael Olise to crack the post. But only 5 minutes after that, exactly what I just said happened. Min Jae Kim loses his 50-50, is out of position, and Jonathan Burkardt, a man with 10 goals already this season, has Bayern's half to himself to attack. He misses the eventual shot. Sadly, Burkardt had to come off after this shot because he felt something in his hamstring, but this did little to influence Bayern's fortunes. Mainz would go on to open the scoring through Jae-Sung Lee, but only after Min Jae Kim fails to clear a routine ball. Lee went on to score a second goal in the second half, but I would say that goal mostly came down to Mainz's brilliance rather than Bayern making mistakes. Sure, they did make some mistakes, but even highlighting them takes away from how good Mainz were here. They pulled Min Jae out of the center. Anthony Cassie dumbfounds him with a great back heel. Balls crossed in. The dummy by Jens takes Eric Dyer out the equation, and Lee swivels cleverly in the box and strokes it home. Brilliant. Mainz deserved all of this. They were incredibly solid all game, transitioned incredibly well, and time wasted like the worst of them. Bayern were clearly rattled. They did score a goal to bring it back, but in the end, it wasn't enough. Admittedly though, Bayern did look like a team that has about 8 players injured, right? And I also do want to emphasize that these lapses in concentration, they do seem to be happening less and less frequently. Oh, and quick question talking about the goal that Bayern Munich scored. This is for the Bayern Munich fans. What in the world has happened to Leroy Sané? Isn't this a guy that's on like 20 million euros a year or something like that? That does not look like a 20 million euro a year player. What happened? I swear he wasn't this inconsistent at Man City. It's puzzling. At this point last season, Leverkusen had 36 points. It really puts into perspective just how high of a standard they were performing at last year, doesn't it? How Xabi Alonso failed to win every single Manager of the Year award last year is beyond me, especially after the season that they had, only losing 1 game. All the same, they're not as good this year, but they're still in the title race, don't get me wrong, only 4 points off. It's very interesting. I want to talk about Eintracht Frankfurt, but if I'm honest with you, I kind of have the same problem that I had with Bayern Munich about a month and a half ago when I just don't know too much about them. You know, if I'm honest with you, being completely honest, I think the last time I paid any sort of sustained attention to Frankfurt was 2 years ago when they won the Europa League and they finished, what, like 14th or something like that. So I'll get back to you guys after during the winter break, let's say, and we'll see about it then. So yeah, give me some time. Let me do some research. The Bundesliga, it's looking spicy. And there we have it. Let me know what you guys think about Bayern Munich and the Bundesliga. Like I said, I've had my eyes off the prize for a while, but we're back. That's all for me today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you're having a great day. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.